This is the story of Barry Seal, an ordinary commercial pilot whose life suddenly takes a turn, one from which he could either lose everything or gain it all. This is the story the world saw through the movie American Made. At the beginning, Barry is a simple airline pilot, busy with daily flights, so much so that he barely has time for his home or his wife. His wife often complains, but the real problem is that Barry feels he isn't being paid in proportion to his hard work. He wants something bigger from life, and this is where his first wrong step begins. On every flight, he begins to smuggle cigars from Cuba into his country. At first, it's in small quantities, but gradually the amounts increase. One night, he hands a whole bag full of cigars to a bartender at once and in return receives a thick envelope. Barry sits there drinking, thinking himself very clever. At the same bar, a man approaches him. His name is Monty. Calmly, he tells Barry that he knows everything, the smuggling, how he's slowly increasing the volume. Then he smiles and says he's from the CIA, and if Barry wants to avoid jail, he'll have to work with him. Barry thinks it's a joke at first, but within moments, he realizes that the man in front of him is indeed a CIA officer. Monty makes him an offer. A special camera will be installed under his jet. He must fly on specific routes at specific altitudes to photograph enemy intelligence locations. In return, he will get huge money and CIA protection as well. Barry is confused. He returns home, where his wife notices how troubled he looks. She assumes he might have quit his job. Barry tells her nothing. The next day he returns to his old airline, but now everything seems boring. He feels that he is made for a bigger, more dangerous, and more lucrative world. A few days later, he returns to Monty and accepts the offer. From this moment, Barry's life changes completely. He must fly over different countries at extremely low altitudes to photograph intelligence sites. Once, while flying over an enemy country, soldiers below grow suspicious. They open fire on his jet. But Barry is no ordinary pilot. He's an expert. Skillfully, he maneuvers his jet through the bullets and escapes. Upon returning to America, he wears his airline uniform again because Monty had made it clear. He must never tell anyone about his CIA work, not even his wife. And so begins Barry's life in a dangerous and mysterious world where there's immense money and power. But death is always just a moment away. Over time, his missions become even more perilous. Monty is astonished by the photographs Barry brings back. He realizes that perhaps no other pilot could have captured such images. One day, Monty calls him for a special mission. Barry is handed a sealed envelope and sent to Panama, where he must deliver it to a journalist. The envelope contains highly confidential documents. Barry completes the task without question, but his life takes an even more dangerous turn. In Panama, he meets people who take him directly to Pablo Escobar, the world's most notorious drug lord. Escobar's men offer Barry a deal. He must deliver goods to Miami. In return, he will earn $200,000 per trip. They assure him it will be easy because he is a skilled pilot. Hearing this amount, Barry realizes just how far he could go. He accepts the offer. His jet is loaded with a massive quantity of drugs, so heavy that it takes tremendous effort to take off. Somehow he manages and delivers the cargo to Miami. On the return, he receives the cash. For the first time in his life, he sees such a huge sum at once and is overwhelmed with joy. But as he's about to leave with the money, the army raids the location. Everyone is arrested, including Barry. Panic sets in. He fears that his CIA involvement has been exposed. Then Monty arrives. Seeing him brings some relief, but Monty warns that the situation is even more serious. Not only has the US government found out, but a raid on his home is imminent. Monty helps Barry escape, giving him strict instructions never to return home. He gives a new address and tells Barry to take his family there. Once things settle, he'll be called back. Barry does not yet realize that once you step into this game, returning is no longer easy. At midnight, he quietly goes home, wakes his wife and children without a sound, and sets out for the given address. Hours later, they arrive at a secluded countryside house. Barry is increasingly nervous. Outside, he sees Monty waiting. He rushes to him. Monty silently leads him to a small, nearby runway where a jet waits. Monty returns the bag containing the cash Escobar's men had left. Then, in a serious tone, Monty says this mission will be even more dangerous. Barry must now deliver weapons to Honduran rebels. Shocked, Barry refuses, realizing this job is tantamount to inviting death. But Monty insists there is no other choice. Returning home is impossible. Barry reluctantly agrees. The weapons are loaded and he flies to Honduras, delivering them to the rebels. But the rebels behave atrociously. They like his fine clothes and forcefully take them. Devastated, Barry calls Monty to report everything and refuses to return. Monty advises patience and says next time, Barry must communicate clearly with them. The job is critical and he must do it. Soon Barry returns, baseball bat in hand, warning anyone approaching that he will not sit quietly. People keep their distance. Escobar's men arrive again, giving Barry a new offer. This time, he only needs to drop drugs at a specific location on the return. He accepts. His flights increase. Money pours in. Soon he earns so much during the day that handling everything alone becomes impossible. He buys more jets, hires pilots, and builds a full network. Everyone works for him. Partnering with Escobar, Barry Seal transforms from an ordinary pilot to a multi-millionaire in no time. One day, Monty informs him he no longer needs to supply weapons. The government has decided to train the rebels at a designated location. Barry is nervous because it's the same route he used for Escobar's deliveries. Still, he has no choice and completes the task while continuing drug deliveries. His flights, endless deliveries, and huge money make him the richest man in the area. Meanwhile, his wife decides to call her brother, GB, to live with them. GB quickly realizes Barry's wealth and secretly spends some of his money on cars and luxury. When Barry finds out, instead of anger, he calmly warns him not to take money without asking. On a drug delivery, the DEA begins pursuing Barry. He thinks they'll give up, but their plane relentlessly follows. Using his skill, he evades them. But he is now on the DEA's radar, a dangerous position. On the next flight, multiple DEA planes pursue him. Realizing escape is difficult, he lands in a remote area, collects the cash, and flees by bicycle. His jet is seized, along with 200 kilos of drugs. Monty is furious. He had explicitly told Barry to stop the drug work. Escobar has left the country and started open rebellion. He orders Barry to continue deliveries. But just then, Barry's wife calls. GB has been arrested with a large sum of money. Barry rushes to rescue him, arranges his flight to Bora Bora. But GB insults him, demands his weekly pay, and berates his wife. Furious, Barry chases his car, but GB speeds off. Seconds later, a massive explosion occurs, killing GB instantly. Barry realizes Escobar's men orchestrated it. He hides the burnt car in the woods. Meanwhile, Monty is ordered to end the mission. He informs Barry that all rebels and weapons must be accounted for. Barry realizes he will be blamed for everything. Monty destroys all files linking Barry to the CIA. But Barry knows his countdown has begun. Soon, multiple agencies raid his home. FBI, ATF, and others arrest him. Surprisingly, he is released quickly. Agents pick him up and take him to the White House. He is told there's only one way to survive: return to Escobar, gather concrete evidence against him and his men. Barry has no choice. His jet's cameras capture everything. The government now has the evidence. In the White House, there is celebration, but Barry sees his own face in the footage. Escobar's men will not spare him. The government cannot protect him. Fear haunts him. Soon his house is raided again. FBI seizes hidden cash and takes over the property. Barry shifts to a new home. He faces no major jail sentence for weapons or drug smuggling, just 1,000 hours of community service. But the real punishment is constant fear that Escobar's men could kill him at any time. He moves from motel to motel, recording videos explaining he acted on the CIA's orders, hoping the world will know the truth if anything happens to him. One day, Escobar's man who orchestrated GB's death sends a shooter. Barry is killed. His story ends. The CIA immediately confiscates all evidence he recorded. Barry wanted the world to know he wasn't just a smuggler. He was working for the government. But with his death, his voice is silenced forever, and Monty is promoted. Soon the media catches wind. Questions are asked of President Ronald Reagan and Vice President George Bush. Slowly, the truth emerges that had been suppressed for decades. On the other hand, Barry's wife's life is completely changed. The FBI seizes all her wealth. She now works at a supermarket, living an ordinary life. Yet, she still keeps the bracelet Barry had gifted her, a priceless reminder. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon for more thrilling recaps.